Assalamu alaikum, greetings of peace. I want to thank you all for joining this program sponsored by ISNA and Islamic Relief. I want to welcome you all to today's Interfaith program, where we will talk about religious communities' response to COVID-19. To begin the program, I want to invite Safiya Khan to recite a few verses from the Holy Quran. Sister Safiya.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا ولما يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم وإن تطيعوا الله ورسوله لا يلتكم من أعمالكم شيئا Inna Allah ghafurur rahim. O mankind, we have created you from a single pair of a male and a female, and made you into nations and tribes, that you may know each other, not that you may despise each other. Verily, the most honored of you in the sight of God is he who is the most righteous of you. And God has full knowledge and is well acquainted with all things.
Thank you, Sister Safiya, for that beautiful verses from the Quran. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Basharat Salim. I am the current Executive Director at the Islamic Society of North America. I joined ISNA as the new ED about 3 months ago. Prior to that, I was working at the Society of Professional Journalists as their Director of Conventions. Just to give you a little bit brief history about myself, I was born in Kashmir, on the Indian side, as you all know, that we have a Kashmir in Pakistan as well. And for my higher studies, I went to Aligarh Muslim University, where I completed my master's degree in science, and then came to United States for my higher studies. So growing up in Kashmir, with my parents, with family, extended family, obviously a great experience. Concepts such as freedom, democracy, equality, upward mobility, and values like that have been with me all along. These universal human values came from my parents, from my schooling, from society in general, and from Islam. So coming to America for me was coming home. My journey with ISNA began in 1999. As I told you, I came to US for my higher studies. I joined ISNA for their first fellowship program in nonprofit management, which they had started in 1999, and where I took courses in philanthropy and nonprofit management at Indiana University here in Indianapolis. Our mission, as you know, at ISNA is to foster the development of the Muslim community, working with interfaith communities throughout the country, indulging in civic engagement and promotion of better understanding of Islam. Today, as you all know, we are faced with an unprecedented crisis. Our thoughts and prayers go to those who are working at the front lines of this crisis, our healthcare workers and others. With 96,000 deaths and more than 1.6 million cases in the US alone, we have a lot of work ahead of us as a nation. Today, as you know, we are living in an interconnected world. What I do today affects my neighbor, and what I do today affects the entire world. That's how today's global economy works. Therefore, we must promote a consciousness of this interconnection. At the outset of this crisis in March, ISNA took many steps in providing programming to the community. Virtually, we arranged national speakers and guests where we provided a lot of programs. We also, in the beginning of March, started a coalition of different organizations. It is called the National Muslim COVID-19 Task Force. There were just a couple of organizations came together and created this campaign, and other organizations joined in eventually, and later this became a very broad coalition of more than 40 organizations. Islamic Relief is a part of this coalition as well. As communities of faith, I think we must continue to provide spiritual guidance and social services to our communities here in the United States and throughout the world. We must remind everyone that we are one people under one God. That is our message to the community in this situation today. To begin the program now, I would like to invite the president of ISNA, Dr. Saeed Muhammad Saeed, whom you all know. Dr. Saeed doesn't need to be introduced, but I will do that anyways. Before Dr. Saeed became the president of ISNA, he led the ISNA's Interfaith Alliance office in Washington, D.C. as its national director. Dr. Saeed also served as the Secretary General of ISNA for 12 years. He held various positions, including the president of the Muslim Students Association of North America, General Secretary of International Islamic Federation of Student Organizations, Secretary General of the Association of Muslim Social Scientists, and various other positions. I would like to welcome Dr. Saeed Saeed.
Well, Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. It's amazing. I mean, first is thank you, Basharat, yourself, and Iftikhar, who made it possible, and to the Islamic Relief, who joined in sponsoring it. And I'm really impressed how you have been able to get our comrades, our fellow religious leaders who have been very closely working together with us. This only reminds me an earlier similar situation when we were faced with that crazy pastor who was threatening to burn the Quran. So at that time, we thought that it was such an unfortunate thing to happen in this country. But it is exactly, sometimes you don't even expect that out of an evil, something good is born. And that was the time when many of the leaders who are here, who came forward and they said that we will not allow this to happen. And they came and condemned what was happening. And at the same time, they said that we will have to do something extraordinary to assert as American religious communities upholding American values of freedom of religion and respect for the other. And they created an organization, a campaign called Shoulder to Shoulder. You know, today is our last day of Ramadan. So Shoulder to Shoulder in a very innovative way advance the understanding between different faiths, and particularly for us about Islam and other faiths with whom we are allied. So as an experiment, I recall 12 years ago, we had our first iftar, breaking of the fast, in a synagogue. And then we had that year 2 or 3 churches and synagogues where we had our breaking of the fast ceremony, and it was sponsored by the Jewish and Christian denominations. Last year, it's amazing, we had 500 synagogues and churches and holy places of other religious communities who sponsored iftar, the breaking of the fast. This is amazing that from when I recall how this huge thing happened in America, how it grew into such a powerhouse, and the whole thing was initially a response to something that we had seen as the worst of the evil that could have happened here. And today when we are meeting, we have a similar situation. We are responding to a very serious challenge that the sons and daughters of Adam, wherever they are, it is not a particular ethnic group, a particular race, or a particular religious community that are targeted. We are targeted as human beings. And that's why we have been working together. And we have learned over centuries that religion has to work closely with science, with education, with knowledge, while as we are providing the spiritual strength to our fight against this evil virus, we are constantly, continuously getting our input from those who are experts in this field. And it is made easy by the precedents we have within our own faith, the commandments that we have in the Quran, that this kind of work has to be done in collaboration between religious leaders and the experts in this epidemic and in science and in medicine. So today we are together. We want to share our latest information and latest developments. And I'm very glad that you were able to make it and give us that kind of support and strength, and mutually we will be stronger. Thank you very much. Yes, Bashar. How do you plan it? I don't hear you.
Okay, Dr. Said, would you like to say anything more or?
No, I mean,
Okay.
this is,
Thank you, Dr. Said. Thank you very much. At this time, I want to invite the President of Islamic Relief USA, Anwar Khan, to the program. Anwar served as an advisor for USAID. He actually serves as an advisor to the current administration. Brother Anwar has also served as an advisor in the previous administrations, as well as to the United Nations. Anwar Khan is the founding member of Islamic Relief USA. So please help me in welcoming Brother Anwar Khan.
Assalamualaikum, Basharat. Thank you so much. I am not an advisor. I just give my opinions when I'm asked, mashallah. So on that, okay? I'm not an advisor. I wanted to say thank you so much. We are in the last few hours of this blessed month of Ramadan. It's a beautiful month. I didn't expect it to be the way it is. And it's even better by seeing our friends of different faiths and backgrounds on the call. Thank you so much for all of you for taking time out of your very busy schedules to be with us. Thank you so much, Father Peking. It's wonderful to see you again. I saw him when there's a Christian-Muslim dialogue in Pittsburgh, and he's trying to not just take care of his own flock, but trying to work with other flocks as well. Thank you so much. And we have the giant of Dr. Medley on the call. And we have a concept in Islam called Sadaqah Jariyah, continuous charity. So Dr. Medley isn't just doing continuous charity with all his good actions with the ABC, the American Baptist, but also with many other people he's influenced of different faiths as well. Thank you so much. And I'm very happy to also have see Bishop Eaton here. Now, Bishop Eaton's, her congregation of the which are the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, the international office has an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with Islamic Relief. And we've done projects with the international organization. We just need to get around and maybe do a little bit more with them here in America. So I have the honor of being around all of these wonderful clergy. Thank you so much for being here today. And I see a few familiar faces. I want to just very quickly, Kevin Smith from FEMA. And I just realized I don't want to talk more about him until after I show the video. So can we have the video, please? And then I'll continue.
Hello and Assalamu alaikum. My name is Saeed Dura. I am the campaign lead for Islamic Relief USA for COVID-19 response. Islamic Relief USA, due to the amazing support from our donors and our volunteers and partners, we've been able to work in over 30 states with over 140 partners who are in your backyard that are helping vulnerable communities all over the country.
Today I'm here with the Islamic Center of Detroit, and we are passing out food, all types of food.
Today we are working towards building our food pantry with the help of Islamic Relief USA.
We are here, Islamic Relief, partnering with As-Sabil. We are helping over 500 families today.
Islamic Relief is here today in support with us to feed the community.
Today alone, we will give nearly 1,000 bags of produce.
We're here today in Clifton, New Jersey, in partnership with Smile, making about 400 food packages.
And I'm here in DC at a hospital with our partners, Tables Without Borders, to distribute hot, nutritious meals for frontline healthcare workers as they're responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to the meals that we provided the frontline healthcare workers, we also provided them with face mask covers.
We will be sending 2 trucks with 30,000 water bottles to help Navajo Nation tribe. These people are facing a huge scarcity and shortage of water.
Today we are partnering with Islamic Relief, who sponsored our event to give out more than $17,000 worth of gift cards to clients and people that are in need.
People are hurting and they are hungry. And so we thank Islamic Relief over and over and over again for them to give us the money that we need in order to be able to feed this line behind me.
This is part of our COVID-19 response. We will be giving out a total of 150,000 pounds of rice across the country in over 10 cities.
We cannot do what we do without all of your continued support. Stay safe, everyone. Happy Ramadan. Many blessings. Thank you.
You've seen a lot of the footage of what Islamic Relief is doing, whether it be food packages and handing those out to vulnerable communities through our partners, or in some cases even handing out PPE, hygiene kits, including masks that are on the front lines handed to hospitals. Islamic Relief USA is on the front lines on your behalf. We've upped our commitment twice and now have committed to over $5 million worth of aid in the USA and international. Thanks to amazing support that you've provided Islamic Relief USA. Jazakumullah khair and Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. I thought it would, much better than me saying anything, I thought it'd be better to show the people the appreciation and the work that we're doing. Look, what I'm talking about, I'm sure my Christian friends, Jewish friends, and people from all different backgrounds are doing exactly the same we are. We are driven by our scripture. We are driven by our faith to put our faith into action. Islamic Relief USA, Islamic because we're inspired by Islamic values, but we have people of all faith and no faith that work with us, and we help people of all faith and no faith. The distributions you saw, we were able to tap into the Muslim community and the Muslim community social services and get them to help their neighbors. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you are not a Muslim if your neighbor is hungry. So wherever there's a mosque, there should not be a food desert area. This is our Islamic responsibility and we have to put it in action. A lot of donations went down for houses of worship, including mosques. They didn't have much money. So we sent out some money that we haven't done before in 27 years to them to continue their social services to help in the community. Then there were other partners you saw that didn't have Muslim names. These are partners, the majority are from a Muslim background, but we also have Christian partners, including evangelical partners that we work with and from different faiths across the country to help out. Our name is Relief, and right now our focus is relief, but we also do development. Our name is USA, and we're proud to be from the USA, but we're working right now in 40 countries around the world, and in our COVID response, it's over $10 million internationally with our partners, of which we in the US have now gone from 2.5 up to 5 million. This is only the beginning. The need is much more than even billions of dollars that we have. The government right now is dealing with trillions of dollars. And since we're talking about the government, I wanted to come in and I see my friend, some of my friends on this. So I'll start first with Kevin. So as I was saying with Kevin, the water bottles that my colleague in Dallas was talking about, the 30,000 water bottles, are from FEMA. This is an amazing project. We're not just helping our fellow people. You have the government, which is the public sector. Then you have the private sector, which is Islamic Relief. Then you have the Navajo Nation, which is tribal government. So we, without the FEMA connections, we couldn't have made this happen. They have the water. We want to distribute the water. They have the network. It is our job, we believe, as Muslims, to help our community, to help our government in helping our community. So this is very important. And Kevin is somebody that we have spoken to in the past, and he's spoken to us, and we have a great relationship. So an amazing project that I want to announce is, this was at the idea of FEMA, was to send Muslim doctors, and they're going to US Virgin Islands. So Imana, which is affiliated with ISNA, with the logistics of Islamic Relief, and under the guidance of FEMA. Win, win, win. We ain't talking about interfaith, we're doing it. So this is just a few of the projects. And sometimes I think when he's driving around in a tornado areas, he gives me a call, Anwar, are there any mosque in this area? And we're like, okay, well, we'll hook you up. And so I just want to tell people, people may not understand. Sometimes we as Muslims complain about Islamophobia and people being against us. I don't want to go into too much detail. His predecessor was very different than him, okay? So there's no use having nice people if you don't talk to them. So please, I'm encouraging people, work with FEMA, DHS, work with your services. We are not here to help Muslims. We are here to help everyone. Not because they're Muslim, because we are. You could say the same thing with Judaism and Christianity and any faith. Bennett Miller, who's now from Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement. In the video that we showed, some of those are refugees, Bennett, that we were helping. So after the refugee resettlement closes after a certain amount of time, then you ask for faith-based and other organizations to continue helping people. We are doing that. So we want to continue. So when our government generously does help some people, you can't continue forever, we know that. So then we want to help them. And that includes giving out what you saw, gift cards in Houston and in other places. We're giving cash to people, not cash, but gift cards so they can buy what they need. Now, separate to that is food. The bulk of our partners are delivering food, as you saw. Also, you saw that we're giving out PPE in 5 different states with Penny Appeal and with Imana, Islamic Medical Association North America, which is linked with ISNA. Okay, so this is just a little bit of the work that we are doing. And I wanted to, I don't know if Amanda's going to be on the call or not from the White House, but she's been arranging calls with different faith leaders. I wanted to thank her and the White House for including Muslims, Islamic Relief, and ISNA and other organizations in that. We are taking in the information from the White House, and then we are transmitting that information through 150 partners. So the guidelines that are coming from there, they're coming to us, and then they're passing on. Islamic Relief is nothing, of course, without the will of God, the barakah from Allah, the blessing from God, but also we literally couldn't do this in 100 cities without 150 partners. We are putting our faith in action. We're working with government. We're working with our Christian colleagues. We're working with our Jewish colleagues. I don't have enough time, and I think there's too many speakers to go through a list of all the different ones that we have. But I have a feeling that I may know some Christians that my Christian colleagues don't know. So I remember when I was speaking at Eaton College, Dr. Reverend Beckman from Bread for the World, who's a Lutheran, said, Amber, how did you get in? I can't get in over there. It's part of this interfaith work. We've been able to go to places that you would never expect us. So I wanted to thank the faith partners. You have inspired us, as Dr. Said mentioned, shoulder to shoulder. If it wasn't for shoulder to shoulder initiatives like that with ISNA and others, we wouldn't have the religious freedom to do our work. If our government was like some other governments, we wouldn't have the religious freedom to do our work. When you give us religious freedom, it is the responsibility of a Muslim to go out there and to feed his neighbor. We are not allowed to make soup in our house, according to a saying of the Prophet Muhammad, if our neighbor's hungry without adding water and sharing it. Our children are not allowed to eat fruit outside unless they share it with the neighbor or they have to go inside. We don't want people to be envious of us having food and people don't. At a time when my fellow Americans are struggling, at a time when we have so many people unemployed and so many people in these food lines, it is important that every faith doesn't just do its job, but we do it together. So thank you for bringing us together. And I'm praying in the last few hours for all of you, that God bless all of you, whether you believe in Ramadan or not. We do. So we want God to bless you as much as possible in these last few hours. So we want him to bless you whether you want it or not. May you have a blessed, not just few hours, rest of the year. Now I'm going to get off so you can talk, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you.
Thank you, Anwar, for sharing that inspiring story, for the video, for all the good work that Islamic Relief and you all are doing. We greatly appreciate it. I know the communities around the country, around the globe appreciate it a lot. So please continue. Faith in action. I think that's what is needed at this time more than ever before. To continue the program, I want to go to Bishop Eaton, the presiding bishop of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, ELCA. ELCA has been one of the longest interfaith partners of ISNA, as well as the founding member of ISNA's flagship Shoulder to Shoulder campaign. Dr. Saeed alluded to the campaign. We do work with them day in and day out, and it's one of the most important programs that we have in our interfaith division. So please join me in welcoming Bishop Eaton.
Thank you so much, and a blessed Ramadan, though it's drawing to an end. I'm very grateful to be here with you. This is my second time this week being sort of in an iftar, and the second time only in my life, and they've both been virtual. So I'm so grateful to have this experience. We have deep partnerships with ISNA, and I'm very grateful to Dr. Saeed, who often comes to our assemblies to speak to us and to model interfaith cooperation and understanding. And we're also very happy to work together with Dr. Saeed and also Rabbi Rick Jacobs at the beginning of April, which was the month in which Ramadan started. For us, it was Holy Week, and it was the beginning of Passover for the Jews. We did a joint video describing how our faith sustained us, particularly in these very holy days of our traditions. It was wonderful to be able to hold up that witness. We're also glad to be partners with Islamic Relief. The Lutheran World Federation signed a memorandum of understanding first in 2016 at the beginning of our tradition's 500th anniversary of the Reformation with Islamic Relief. And we are doing work not only here in this country, as you heard from Mr. Khan, but also we're engaged all over the world. And now particularly Lutheran World Federation and Islamic Relief are advocating for a ceasefire so that those with COVID can find ways to find medical care and food in this time. So I'm proud that we can stand, to borrow a phrase, shoulder to shoulder with Islamic Relief to bring peace to people who need it so much. We are also trying to make sense of how we continue to worship and be a community together in this COVID time. Many of our states are opening in the United States, but churches are being cautious. In my tradition, we're urging people to follow the CDC guidelines as well as state and local officials. And that involves social distancing or physical distancing, wearing masks, not gathering in large groups yet, which we believe is a way to help to prevent the spread of the disease. It's funny, in all of our traditions, I think everything that we do when we come together for worship, for prayer, for Shabbat, it means gathering in groups close together. And in our traditions, singing is a very big part of that, which is right up there with coughing and sneezing and potentially spreading the disease. So this has been a difficult time for us, but we are still recommending that people shelter in place and keep distance. Our congregations, our pastors have been remarkably creative in devising online digital worship services and Bible studies, book studies, and ways of connecting with their communities, including relief. So I've been impressed with that. Unfortunately, as you are aware, this this pandemic, which should bring us closer together in support of one another, has become itself politically divisive. And the message from the president yesterday, encouraging people to go back to, in our case, he was mentioning church, to Christian churches, is very confusing to our folks. And I think dangerous thing that the White House is promoting. I've been taken to task for being too political, but I mentioned that God is everywhere and not just inside a building. So we're trying to weather that storm. And at the same time, we've been busy with relief. Lutheran disaster response does not just serve Lutherans, nor just churches. It serves everyone in a community. So, and we partner with FEMA also. So we've been responding to people's needs in communities hard hit. As we all know, people have lost their jobs. Even with the government's generous aid package, it's still difficult. So we are also feeding people and engaged in those works. We are very happy to be working together. As Mr. Khan referenced, we are the Lutheran ULCA is a founding member of Shoulder to Shoulder, which is now, I think, more important than ever, especially when we see the rise in anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim attacks and bigotry. So we're committed to standing with you, and we're grateful that you stand with us. I would say, I know this is a bit premature, but Eid Mubarak, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much, Bishop Eaton. Thank you. And we greatly appreciate your friendship, and I look forward to many more events like this in future, inshallah. Next, we will go to Kevin Smith. Kevin is the Faith Director of FEMA and has been actively involved in the COVID-19 response. Kevin Smith is a political appointee by President Trump. So please welcome Kevin Smith.
Thank you so much, Basharat, Dr. Saeed, and specifically Anwar. Thank you so much for our partnership and the relationship we have forged together in partnering and serving people. And as Anwar was promoted to the senior advisor to the administration, I also want to maybe clarify a little bit of my title as being the director of the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security Center for Faith and Opportunity Initiatives. And the reason I want to do that is because I want you to know a little bit about, on behalf of the Faith and Opportunity Initiatives of the White House, myself and our 12 colleagues across the Centers for Faith in each of the federal agencies, we work together to identify ways that we can partner alongside all of our faith organizations. And as Anwar will tell you, he's been a great friend to DHS as we've worked alongside in FEMA, but he's also worked very closely. We've been able to partner together as we were working on the humanitarian aid on the border last year. And as we talk about the safety and security of our houses of worship, as the administration, and part of what we are doing is ensuring that religious freedom is a priority, and the ability of our houses of worship, whatever worship you may have, is to be able to do so in a safe and secure environment. And some of the resources that we have collected across government, but specifically within the Department of Homeland Security, are things that we want to make sure that all of our houses of worship have access to. So when I am done speaking in just a couple seconds, I'm going to use this chat box. I'm going to make sure to put some web links in there to make sure that people have the resources and have the connections to many of the resources that we are working to provide to each of our mosques, our churches, our synagogues across the country. And that's such a big, important part of who we are and what we are trying to do. In fact, on Thursday of this week, I met with my 12 colleagues in the White House and Faith and Opportunity Initiative to speak specifically about how all of this activity that's going on in and around COVID, and all of the money that is coming through the amazing action by by Congress and the administration to get to the people. It's not only identifying how those resources are being made available, but actually getting those into the hands of each of our faith leaders. I want to tell you a little bit about my background that might be helpful. I grew up as a pastor's kid. And my father, one thing I knew about, and I know that most of you as faith leaders could probably reflect on this too, at the middle of the night, you not only get those calls about faith and leadership, you also get the calls about plumbing and electricity, and you get the calls about where to go. You get calls to celebrate the birth of that new child. And then 18 years later, you get that same phone call to say, how do I deal with that 18-year-old kid? And how do we put him on the right track for success? And the truth is, every one of your congregants, every one of the people that worship alongside of our faith leaders, they turn to you because you're people of trust. They turn to you because they know that you're going to give them an answer to help to support them. What my goal is in the Department of Homeland Security is to make sure that I'm empowering you as faith leaders to make sure that you have the resources available and not something abstract in DC that Congress has put out there and you've got to navigate the rat race to try to figure out how to access them, but actually to put those tools in the hands of the faith leaders so that they can get it and champion serving their community, serving those not only inside the walls of their house of worship, but outside the walls, as Anwar said, as a part of being a Muslim, is serving in our community. And of all of our faiths, it's a basic tenet of who we are, is serving others. It would be crazy for us to put programs out there and all this abstract information and not actually get it in the hands of those who can serve in the community and get it to where it's needed the most. You know, houses of worship, and this has been exemplified in COVID-19 response. Houses of worship were on the front lines. They didn't wait for government to call and say, hey, can you do this? When there was need, they went and started to serve. Islamic Relief is at the point, the information that I had is we went into this last week with over $1.9 million been provided across the nation as people were serving, whether it was meals, whether it was actually the bags of rice or the water in partnership with our FEMA agency and resources that we have, are serving and helping to partner with local community organizations, regardless of the community of belief that they come from. That's what we're about. That is what this partnership is working with our faith leaders who have such a hand in the community to do so much good. Why in the world would any government agency not want to work alongside all of that? I can just tell you, I've came from outside of government as I accepted this position 2 years ago. And from my perspective, I can tell you as working in a nonprofit community my entire life, government is not the expert in identifying and serving need. It is our faith organizations, our community-based organizations who serve on the food pantries, on the streets every day. And the more I can do across our agency, the more my colleagues at the Centers for DHS and partnering alongside you, that's what we're about. That's what we want to help you do. And to my partners with Lutheran Disaster Services and Catholic Charities and the Salvation Army and the Baptist organizations that are out there, the National Baptist Convention, all of our faith partners, watching them work hand in hand together and serving in this time of need. It's just been tremendous for me. It's been motivating for me, and I am thankful. And it is a little premature right now to say Eid Mubarak, but it comes from my heart as you celebrate this time, as you celebrate the reflection of the charity that you all have been contemplating and providing in communities. And right now in a time where we have all been brought together to meet such a tremendous need across this country, I want to commit to you on behalf of the DHS Center for Faith and Opportunity. You can reach out to us to continue to support us. Anwar, Dr. Saeed, you know that you have my information to reach out to us, and I offer that to each one of you to ensure that you can reach to our community to help to support and work alongside you. There are several key things that have happened in this legislation that we saw come out that looked different than what we wanted to for our houses of worship. So we went back and we worked with Congress to help to change those, to actually make access to the programs of the PPP program, the Small Business Administration, to know that our houses of worship are a critical resource in the communities. And I do encourage folks as they look at this steps as we move forward, there are some great resources out there as you're considering going back to actually that face-to-face contact, that congregating again together. I do want you to be very respectful of the concerns that the CDC guidance has put out, the interim guidance and the HHS guidance that has been placed out there to do so safely. If you feel that you have to get back together and you are bringing your congregation back, then do so safely and follow the guidelines. Because the ultimate consequence here is that we lose people who are coming together in worship. And I agree with my colleague about being very cautious coming back together. And I do agree, God is everywhere. That is he is omniscient, he is omnipresent. And I will tell you this right now, I have never seen God move as powerful as he had through many of our online services and the way that we have come together all across this nation. So please don't let the walls of your building limit you to the ability to worship together. And I am grateful for each one of you. And I would love to, I'm going to stay on. And if I can answer any questions, I am happy to do so. Thank you for this opportunity. And again, Eid Mubarak to you.
Thank you very much, Eid Mubarak. That's beautiful.
Thank you, Kevin, for sharing your story and all the important work that you are doing. We are grateful for all the services that you are providing as a department. At this point, let me invite Reverend David Pecking of the Diocese of Pittsburgh, a new partner to Islamic Society of North America. U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has been a long-time partner to ISNA. ISNA presidents have been hosted by various popes since ISNA's founding, and ISNA is proud of the Diocese of Pittsburgh's recent outreach this year to the American Muslim community in Pittsburgh. Please welcome David Pecking.
Thank you. I'm happy to greet you on behalf of Bishop David Zubik and the Church of Pittsburgh. This is the last day of Ramadan, a season which is frequently a source of great delight to us Catholics, because among other things, it is a season of fasting, prayer, and almsgiving, reminding us so much of our own need to renew our humanity and our religion with these observances. I confess, though, we perhaps also admire and, if not envy, at least aspire to the practice of iftar as we witness it so frequently, focusing the Muslim members of our community on family and friendship, that shared life, which is also so important for our vitality as men and women and as a community. And so, with affection and joy, I am happy to pass on from the Church of Pittsburgh my wishes for your happiness on the feast of the imminent feast of Eid al-Fitr. Here in Pittsburgh, thanks to outreach from the Islamic Society of North America, Dr. Saeed in person, I had the honor of meeting last year, or 2 years ago it was now. We've been making some good progress because of your outreach. On February 21st, Bishop Zubik made his first visit to a mosque for Jumu'ah prayers, and we had bigger plans for more community exchanges that were sadly interrupted by the pandemic, which has occupied so many of us over the recent months. Like most of you, we've had to find creative ways to sustain our basic humanity in this time. Of course, I'm looking at it from a much more local level, trying to find a way to keep our food banks and other programs of aid to the needy still operating despite the threat of spreading contagion, to find ways to do that. As always, we are trying to find ways to aid parents in the education of their children, but that's especially difficult now that the children cannot be assembled in schools. We like to say, we teachers in the Catholic schools have often told you parents how happy, how delightful it is to teach your children, and by now you know we were sometimes lying. It is a great challenge as well as a delight. But beyond that, like most of you, we work also trying to find ways to share worship and prayer virtually. And then there are the special interventions. Of course, on a bigger scale, there are the programs for relief and aid akin to what Anwar Khan described for Islamic relief, but also on a more neighborhood level, there are some very poignant experiences as well. We have been trying to organize ways to help neighbors check on neighbors, socially distanced methods of communicating by phone or by long distance visit of some sort, checking on the elderly. I myself have had the experience of standing outside the window of a nursing home, commending the soul of a woman dying from COVID-19 indoors, unable to enter for reasons of safety, but still trying to find ways to offer those consolations as well as the religious observances. And I like to think we've also seen in recent months some contribution from the church around the world, considering the impact of the pandemic on our civil and economic order. Bishop Eaton alluded to some of those issues, also considering what reforms may be required by the pandemic, or perhaps reforms that were required anyway and occasioned by the pandemic, as the case may be. But we are also eager, we in the Church of Pittsburgh are eager to resume our work on interfaith relations. Been very grateful for the outreach from ISNA, and we hope to take up that mantle again soon, particularly since with the Muslim community, we like to call on Abraham as our father in faith, and we share that devotion to Mary, very particular points of commonality that are reassuring and in some cases inspiring. We are also eager to repair what we can of the quarrels of ancient memory and sadly also some of more recent memory. But overall, we want to sustain and extend the vision of the Second Vatican Council, particularly in its document Nostra Aetate, that eagerness to see a rapprochement among all those who call upon the one God, our Jewish and Muslim brothers and sisters in celebration of our common humanity and in our common gratitude to God.
Thank you, Reverend Pecking. Next, we would like to go to Bennett Miller, a political appointee to the Department of Health and Human Services, where he is overseeing the refugee portfolio. Bennett is a longtime friend to the American Muslim community, especially ISNA and Islamic Relief. Please welcome Bennett Miller.
Yeah, thank you. I'm grateful to Dr. Saeed and everyone there at ISNA for your leadership and your tireless work during this COVID incident. I'm also very grateful for Dr. Saeed and his tireless work promoting interfaith gatherings such as this one. They are so invaluable for persons in government, but also persons in the religious community to get together and discuss our common values, but also our common visions for how to improve our communities. Along those lines, it's good to see familiar faces on this exchange today. And it's also good to have an opportunity to meet new friends. It's also good to have an opportunity to have Anwar give me some additional advice. And that's always welcome. He's a good friend. As was mentioned, I'm recently made a transition from the Department of Homeland Security's Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties over to the Department of Health and Human Services and their Office of Refugee Resettlement. There I'm working on various projects to respond to the needs of refugees, but also persons who are victims of religious discrimination and survivors of torture, those seeking asylum here in the United States. COVID has my attention 100% of the time, it seems, in the very short time that I've been at ORR, helping to protect the children that we have in our custodial care, but also responding to the needs of the survivors of torture and our refugee community to make sure that we are providing the services that we can to help them respond in their own way to their individual challenges during this COVID episode. Our work at ORR is absolutely impossible without public-private partnerships. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Office of Refugee Resettlement, we have grantees throughout the United States, such as Catholic Charities and Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services, who are providing hands-on day-to-day care for refugees, persons in need, but particularly children who are vulnerable who have recently arrived here in the United States. So it's a great opportunity for me to be here personally and hear what the Catholic community and what the Lutheran community, as well as the Islamic community, have, their concerns regarding those who are newly arrived here at the United States. Along those lines, I would encourage all of us to rededicate ourselves to continuous charity, as was mentioned before, and a greater understanding of our shared values. I hope that this early Eid Mubarak is bringing smiles to your faces, but it also inspires you to do even more than you thought possible to care for those people that are closest to you, but to all of our countrymen who need to be loved. And thank you for this opportunity to visit with you. And I look forward to seeing all of you again. And I welcome any inquiry if I can be of assistance to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, I want to invite Roy Medley.
Go ahead.
Roy is the General Secretary Emeritus of the American Baptist Churches USA. He's a close friend of ISNA, and due to his many efforts, the American Muslim community and the Baptist communities have become very strong mutual friends. Please welcome Roy Medley. I think you are.
Yeah, I unmuted. Thank you. Thank you, Bashar. It's wonderful to be able to be here with you in this conversation today and to see my good friend, Dr. Saeed, who has been such a wonderful partner. And Bashar, we pray God's blessings on you as you take the leadership role with ISNA. ISNA has been such an important organization in interfaith relations in our country and around the world with the initiatives that they have carried forward. And Anwar, for you and the work of Islamic Relief as well, I'm reminded that when Katrina devastated New Orleans, I was there along with other Baptist leaders working as to how we could best provide relief and assistance in that terrible situation. And not only were we there, but Islamic Relief was there. We saw your volunteers at work, and we saw Catholic charities at work, as well as church world service and various expressions of our faiths in care for those who are without basic necessities. None of us were requiring a religious test of anyone who was in need to receive the aid and the support that we were giving. We were there serving everyone who was in need. And I think that's a wonderful testimony to the heart of our faiths when we serve in that way. Here in my own community locally, we have a very strong relationship in the ministerial alliance between Roman Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Muslim religious leaders in our community. And they have been in the forefront in the response to COVID-19 here. Not only with our home congregations, whether it's with their synagogue or with their mosque or with their congregation and meeting their needs, but of reaching out to this broader community here in Freehold. I live in New Jersey, in the northern part of the state, where we have felt the worst aspects of COVID-19 in terms of the number of deaths, the number of infections. New Jersey has the highest per capita rate of infections of any state in the country. And so we know firsthand from the obituaries that show up every day of the people who are dying. But we also know of those who, because of having to shelter in place, who have experienced economic stress. And so our faith communities have been in the forefront of providing food relief, working with restaurants to provide meals for those who are hungry, as well as working with food banks and other traditional programs that try to reach out to those who are hungry. And so in those ways, we are giving testimony to the heart of our faith, which is that as we are drawn closer to God, that we are drawn closer to each other as well. And I think that's an important message in this time in which it is very easy for people to use this as an opportunity to divide along all kinds of lines, rather than to bring us together, and how important it is for our religious communities to be working together locally as well as nationally and internationally to show that we share in our seeking for God a love for one another as well. As we are all hungry to be back together again. I know I'm in regular contact with members of my local congregation, First Baptist, and I know how much we yearn to be in one another's presence again. It's a hardship to be separated, and yet we need to be wise. I'm reminded of our Lord Jesus, that when he was tempted of Satan to throw himself down from the temple, saying, "Oh, you know, the angels will protect you. They will gather you up." Jesus rebuked him and said, "You shall not tempt the Lord your God." And I think that's important for us to remember as well, that we be wise in our response to this deep yearning to be back together, that we not put others in danger as well as ourselves by unwise actions. We're grateful for the relationship that we have with ISNA through shoulder to shoulder and other opportunities that we as Baptist, and I would say also as the National Council of Churches in the United States, those are precious relationships. I pray that what we experience here in Freehold in terms of the inner working of Christian, Muslim, and Jewish faith communities, that becomes the norm across the country for every one of us. The blessings on each of you for the good work that each of you is doing in making that possible. God's blessings be upon you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you for those words and that message. We greatly appreciate your friendship, and I look forward to many more events like this, not just virtual, but physical as well. Hopefully things will open up soon. I want to go back to Kevin Smith. Kevin, if you would like to share with us any message from the president that you would like to share with this panel and the community.
Yes, I get, Anwar will tell you, I get very excited and emotional as we talk to our faith partners about working together. That one of the things that I was excited to share with you is just released from the White House office this morning before I came on, was a message. And when I am not someone who reads from notes very well, I don't want to mess this up. So I want to read directly on May 23rd, 2020, the president's message for Eid al-Fitr 2020. And he says, on Eid al-Fitr, the First Lady and I send our warmest greetings to Muslims in the United States and around the world as they celebrate. Known as the festival of breaking the fast, Eid al-Fitr marks the end of the holy month of Ramadan, a month filled with fasting, prayer, reflection, and other traditional observances. Over the past few weeks and months, as we have fought the coronavirus, we have relied on our faith, family, and friends to help guide us through these unprecedented times. And as Muslims observe the day of Eid al-Fitr, we hope that they find both comfort and strength in the healing powers of prayer and devotion. Now more than ever, we are reminded of the reassuring peace, the uplifting love, and the heartening fellowship that religion brings into our lives. We send our best wishes for a blessed and joyous Eid al-Fitr. And I'm sorry I didn't get that to you as soon as I started speaking, because it was important to me that I saw it when it was sent, and that was asked for me to make sure on this call that I read that to each of our partners out there, those of the Muslim faith and each of our interfaith community during this time of reflection and dedication and prayer and charity, that we recognize that, and the administration of my colleagues across each of the Centers of Faith and Opportunity initiatives hold you dear to us and continue to work with you to help find any way we can to partner as you continue to serve your community. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. This is very, on time. You know that we have been receiving messages from the White House right from President Jefferson. So there's a long history of recognizing Islam and Muslims all the way for the last couple of 100 years. So when I was saying that we had, through the shoulder to shoulder, we had these 500 iftars in not Islamic centers or mosques, that would be something very natural, but in synagogues and churches. So that is what America is. It's amazing. So last 10, 15 years, we worked very hard. After 9/11, we had this kind of messages and iftars in the White House, iftars in the State Department. So in that sense, we have taken it to the corridors of power. And it was a powerful message to the Muslim world that America respects Muslim community here, respects Islam and Islam's these pillars of Islam. So it was amazing that from White House to State Department to different federal offices, different departments, and then to governors' offices, then to mayor's offices, we would have iftars. It was amazing. And more interesting was that the ambassadors in the Muslim countries would also organize, host iftars in those countries. So you can imagine what it meant, because we are collectively building a world, not only having a relationship here, but throughout the world. That's why this kind of messages are very important. They have to be delivered at the right time, crafted in the right way, and received in the right spirit. We are thankful that you came with this message. Thank you very much. Eid is tomorrow. We will send it out today. Thank you, because we respect the position of the president, the role of the president in this kind of situation. Thank you.
Thank you. So we would, as I said at the start of the program, I think we'll spend just a few more minutes in an informal discussion. You can either come up with some questions or I can share something with you. So sometime back, a journalist came to me and asked questions about, what is ISNA doing in COVID and what is your response? How are faith communities dealing with this? Closing of the masjids in the country and all of that. One of the questions she had was, in times of crises, sometimes this kind of situation challenges people's faith. People get tempted to question, how God is dealing or allowing this type of a situation to emerge to begin with. Now, COVID is one of the things, but there is a lot of other evils and bad things in the world. My response to her was that our scripture, Islam, tells us that God created the universe and the humankind, and he presents different situations to different people. And the reason behind is so that he could test how we respond to those situations. Some things that he gives us are very good, and sometimes he puts different tests to us. And he wants to see what would be our response to those particular situations. I would like to ask you to shed some light on this question from your positions and from your standpoint. I don't have a sequence, so I think we can go in any order that you want.
But you said you have only 2 minutes. That is not right, because we have to have iftar together. So you have to hold them. Today the iftar is what time?
8:50, I believe.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. So
okay.
All right, Dr. Said, would you like
Bishop Eaton, she was the first one. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
In our tradition, we understand that that God is present with us in our suffering, that God has enough respect for humankind that there are consequences for our actions, but no one is ever lost. In these pandemics where we can't find perhaps a political enemy, it's just a virus, and not working for evil but working evil. We still believe that God is acting. And in the book of Genesis, toward the end, when Joseph, who'd been sold into captivity by his brothers years before, was now a leader in Egypt, and his brothers meet him and he confronts them, and they're just terrified. And he said, "No, you meant this for evil, but God meant it for good." So I think, Barat, Salim, we would agree that out of very difficult situations, God can bring good. And we've seen this. So, I mean, just to have this gathering here, this would never have happened even, 20 years ago, that we are able to join together and celebrate the goodness of God's creation, but also work together so that the most vulnerable are fed and clothed and cared for.
Beautiful.
I could elaborate maybe a little bit, because I agree substantially with what Bishop Eaton just said. I would add that seems to us the world is broken in many ways, and that brokenness is tied to our own selfishness and self-absorption. And so part of the healing of the world is the healing also of that self-absorption. And so God allows us sometimes to suffer the brokenness of the world in order that we might learn to give of ourselves in charity. He allows us to suffer certain kinds of inequalities in life so that we can learn to give from those who are stronger or have more resources to those who have fewer, or to those who are weaker. And likewise in a pandemic, when we are all somehow suffering in our shared vulnerability to sickness, to learn to care for each other, even in times of distress. And so learn the kind of charity that God intends for all of us.
Beautiful.
Bashar, in your tradition, you speak of God as being the all-compassionate.
Right.
In our Baptist tradition, in our hymnody, and Bishop Eaton spoke about how important singing is in our Christian faith. In our Baptist tradition, a lot of our hymns speak of Jesus as friend. What a friend we have in Jesus. There is not a friend like the lowly Jesus, the one who knows all of our sorrows and our sufferings and is with us. And I think in each of our traditions, we lift up the compassion of God towards God's children, and that in our times of suffering, God has not abandoned us, but God draws close to us and invites us even in that period of suffering to know God's grace and love in a purer and a more refined way than perhaps we do when everything is going so well, and it's so easy to not be mindful of God's loving presence near us.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was yesterday, we have this weekly program on our website, Facebook, on Friday, Reflections on Friday. So I recited from the Quran a verse where God says that from time to time we will test you with scarcity, with scare, and with different kinds of misfortunes and sadness. But it is in that kind of environment, with those kind of tests, he actually wants to see how you respond to them. And then you should know that when it comes to a true believer is confronted with this kind of test, he says that it has come from God and I accept it as a gift from him. There must be something good in it. So what's interesting is that God says that in situations like this, from your side, patience is of utmost importance. And those who show patience, we will reward them and salute them. So the word I was yesterday explaining, the word salute, God himself is saluting those believers who are able to maintain a certain restraint and discipline. Now, the month of Ramadan is for us a month of praying and fasting and so on. So it was very helpful to reject those insinuations that it is that who is responsible for this. Some would say that this has come from China because in China Muslims were persecuted, so therefore God is punishing them. We said no, that's not true. God does not punish in this world. And then so it was very clear we didn't have to wait too long when the virus moved on to Muslim countries and to other countries, to the whole world. So it is not right, Islamically, religiously, it would not be right to attribute it to a particular ethnic group, a race, or geography. And this is directly derived from the Quran. And sometimes our people, they miss it and they commit a major blunder in that way. And we ask Allah to protect us from that kind of blunder, which would be very serious in his eyes.
Thank you, Dr. Saeed. Okay, I think we have reached the end of the program. So on behalf of the Islamic Society of North America and Islamic Relief, I want to thank each one of you for taking time on a Saturday. I know how busy the schedules are, but we really appreciate your time. And we look forward to many more events like this. We have a lot of work ahead of us, as you know, but we'll continue to coordinate and have events with you, both virtual and physical as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.